and the war they felt they weren't fighting. But their hours ashore ended all too quickly. Another day, and once again the harbor swarmed with men and ships. Once again, everything was being made ready for the order to up anchor. The LCVPs ferried the troops out to the waiting transports. LCIs took on more infantry, engineers, and medical corpsmen. Every man had done it all 100 times before. Every ship and landing craft fitted into the operation like the parts of a jigsaw puzzle. A puzzle that always worked out in the same meaningless pattern. And then it happened. Attention, men, attention! From General Eisenhower to all soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force, you are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. Good luck. That changed everything. Now the boys knew this wasn't just another war game. This time they would be playing for keeps. Huge floating piers of concrete and steel to be used in the construction of our invasion harbors were towed across the channel. When we headed out this time, many of us wondered when we'd see the cliffs of England again. Hour after hour, our passing bomber fleets filled the Channel skies. The men were quiet now, each alone with his thoughts and fears. We spotted a lone enemy observation plane. Our anti-aircraft guns went into action. The enemy might suspect our coming, but when we would strike and where was a secret we meant to keep. All that day, following a zigzag course, we moved steadily and stealthily toward our appointed rendezvous off the coast of France. With the coming of sunset, all chaplains held services on deck. We were in God's hands now, and every man, no matter what his faith, sought strength and solace in prayer. At dusk, we arrived at the rendezvous and hove to under the welcome cover of the deepening night. Now began the most trying ordeal of all, waiting through the long, nerve-straining silence for H hour. Swept the enemy beaches with brooms of fire. And by dawn, the smaller landing craft were in the water, ready to take on their cargoes of infantry. While the big guns fought it out with hidden Nazi shore batteries, our first wave moved in. From the skies, hundreds of planes provided air cover for the seaborne invasion below. While operating inshore, fast rocket boats showered the enemy with their rain of death. LCVPs moved in close to the obstacle barricade and dropped their ramps. Through deadly enemy machine gun and mortar fire, the troops waded through deep water to the shore. Many never reached it. The larger LCIs came shouldering in with more infantry to reinforce our hard-won foothold. Coast Guard rescue cutters were already going about their grim business of picking up the wounded and the dead. During those next violent days, while we were fighting to extend our gains, thousands of men and vast quantities of supplies and equipment were shuttled in from the sea. We landed more medical field units. The severely wounded were carried to the relative safety of outlying hospital ships and transports. The two-way traffic never stopped. The wounded going out, the ever-growing tide of more men and material pouring in. When the enemy had been pushed back from the beaches, the mammoth LSTs came lumbering ashore with their tons of heavy equipment. Our beachhead to Berlin was established. The invasion surged farther inland, gaining power as it went. Now the troops were on their own. As the Allied armies rolled forward, thousands of German prisoners were filtered to the rear to wait until we had time to evacuate them. Scores of our older merchant vessels had been scuttled to form protective breakwaters against the treacherous seas. But now the full fury of a Channel gale swept our invasion coast. The sea had taken its toll, adding to the high price we had already paid in men and ships. The Flying Angel was among our Coast Guard losses. Young Bill Jackson will never sing in your choir again. I have already written his parents. That's the hardest part of our task. Those last letters we of the Chaplain Corps must write. There are so many deeds of courage and sacrifice that cannot be measured in mere words. They must be recorded by a much greater power than is ours. So much for now, old friend. The great crusade of liberation is well begun.